Seafarers, save our jobs!
They're making plenty of noise, but are P&O Ferries listening? After the shock sacking of 800 staff yesterday, done in a pre-recorded video, replaced with cheap agency workers, protests have erupted at ports across the country. What they want to know is, will the government step in to save their jobs?
We do have rules in this country on this, and obviously lawyers and others will be looking at it. I know the unions are very concerned to make sure that the actual laws have been followed here. It's not just about the letter of the law, it's also about common decency.
Strong words, but in Liverpool, Labour mayors Steve Rotherham and Andy Burnham want to see action.
They should make this company obey the law of the land. I personally believe if the company won't listen, the government should consider nationalising P&O, because this is an important strategic carrier for the country.
In Dover, it's all still sinking in for Lee, who had worked at the company for 30 years until yesterday.
I'm devastated, sorry. Yeah, not just for myself, for my colleagues. Like I said, we had a number of young guys in there that have only been with the company 5 or 6 years, came through the apprenticeship scheme. We're told you're the future, you're what we need. And then these young kids, they've got mortgages, they've got young families. So it's those I feel really sorry for at the minute.
It's all very far from the image P&O Ferries try to project.
I'm a stewardess on the Pride of Canterbury.
In these slick marketing videos, which give the impression that the staff are at the heart of the operation.
We are the people of P&O Ferries.
In a statement, they described the mass firing as a difficult but necessary decision, done as a last resort to secure the company's financial future. That's despite taking £10 million in furlough cash and its parent company DP World spending almost £150 million on sponsoring the 2022 European Golf Tour. Something that has angered union bosses.
It's about greed, it's unacceptable, and this is a company, by the way, that recently, with its parent company, paid out a £270 million dividend payment. So the idea that it's unaffordable and we got to do it to cut costs is a complete myth.
Demonstrations are set to continue, with more planned for the weekend as the government calls for urgent talks between company bosses and the unions. But for now, this dispute, like these ferries, is not going anywhere fast.
Well, our reporter Amelia Jen is in Dover. Amelia, what's been happening there today?
Well, the bulk of those jobs have been lost here in Dover, up to around 500. And we spent the day speaking to now former crew members, many of whom were too scared to go on record, fearing that it might affect their redundancy package. Some of them were in tears. All of them were in shock at the way in which they'd been fired. We spoke to one woman who said they were rushed off so quickly they had to throw all their belongings in a bin bag. She left her glasses on board and was unable to go back and get them. Now, these are people who've worked and lived on these ferries for decades. Even now, when you speak to them, they say we or us when they refer to the company. Contrast that to what they see as the coldness of language in a letter sent to them by their CEO yesterday, which we've been given a copy of. And in it, he explains the changes will save the company crewing costs by 50%. He says you may understandably be surprised at the news, advising if you're affected by it, then please do take some time to absorb it. Which they probably won't thank him for. Well, P&O's tone has in fact changed today. They said they understand the distress this will have caused crew members and their families. They say they've offered an enhanced redundancy package, but that doesn't really make any difference to people here.
And I mean, this move by P&O has created unusual political unity, hasn't it?
Well, yes, at that protest at the ferry terminal today, the former Labour Chancellor, John McDonnell, was joined by the local Conservative MP, Natalie Elphicke. I caught up with her earlier and asked her how she wanted the government to respond.
It's absolutely essential that we look at every single avenue to make them reverse their decision and give these jobs back.
And does the government need to change its fire and rehire policy, the law?
We are looking at what exactly the situation is in law, and that is something which was talked about earlier.
Well, as you say, these aren't likely bedfellows, but the very fact that Natalie Elphicke, who was in fact a bit heckled when she was there, turned up to stand alongside them, just shows how much P&O's actions have united people in outrage across the political divide.
Amelia, thanks very much. Well, as the Prime Minister was in Aberdeen today addressing the Scottish Conservative Conference on Russia and levelling up, P&O Ferries and their Dubai-based owners were showing no signs of backing down. So what are the government's options and who exactly are they dealing with? Kieran Jenkins has been finding out.
The P&O Ferries debacle has put the company and its owners in the spotlight. So who are they and what can the UK government do? P&O Ferries is owned by DP World, which in turn is effectively owned by the government of Dubai, controlled by some of the wealthiest men on the planet. They say P&O Ferries is losing £100 million a year. In the year 2020, DP World paid its shareholders £270 million in dividends, a couple of months before announcing an earlier round of 1,100 job cuts, which it blamed largely on the pandemic. Boris Johnson was in Dubai on Wednesday, the day the government says it learned of P&O's latest plans. Labour's asking if the subject came up. Number 10 suggests it did not.
And we are already taking action.
The Chancellor popped up virtually at the Scottish Tory Spring Conference.
The might of the UK Treasury.
Might the might of the Treasury be used to take back around £10 million of P&O furlough payments? We understand that's not really a goer. The company is one of the world's biggest port operators and is well known to the Chancellor. He was their guest of honour last September.
At the heart of Europe's biggest consumer market.
Praising DP World for supporting local jobs, as they were announced as backers of the government's first Freeport project. The Transport Secretary then stood next to the DP World CEO tonight, saying the government will review all its contracts with the company.
Democracy and freedom.
Back at the Aberdeen conference,
leading the world in standing up to the hydrocarbon drug-pushing bully of the Kremlin.
No mention of P&O from the PM, no interviews either. We caught up with the Scottish Secretary. Didn't your government talk out a bill using parliamentary skullduggery that would have made this illegal?
Well, I'm not aware of that.
Well, that happened in the House of Commons last year.
Well, as I say, all I know quite clearly, P&O, the manner in which they've done this has been completely wrong.
Should we outlaw fire and rehire now?
Let's check out the
we'll worry about that. We're on our way to a meeting.
This bill is about treating people fairly.
In October, the government did talk out a backbench bill to make fire and rehire unlawful. Talking it out is a form of blocking a bill by running down the clock.
The unambiguous message is that bully boy tactics for fire and rehire.
Number 10 said then there wasn't evidence the law would be effective.
Absolutely.
DP World's own parent company says it's committed to best ethical practices and integrity. Yesterday, security boarded P&O Ferries to encourage staff off. Today, the government is asking it to pause.
Kieran Jenkins there. Well, I'm joined now by Mark Dickinson. He leads the International Maritime Workers Union, Nautilus. Mr. Dickinson, protests across the country, a lot of support. But the big question is, have you yet proved that this was illegal?
I don't think I need to. I've got a letter from Kwasi Kwarteng here on my iPad, which tells me he thinks it's illegal, and they could be open to criminal. There could have been a criminal offence, and there could be unlimited fines. So I think it's pretty clear.
So there's been fury from the government today. You mentioned Kwasi Kwarteng, who said that P&O's actions had shamed business. We saw the Transport Secretary describe it as brutal treatment of workers. But aside from the angry words, what do you actually need the government to do now?
Well, we need them to get this company to withdraw their plans, get us round the table with our sister union, the RMT. I've just come back from demonstrations in Dover, demonstrations outside DP World's office near Victoria Station, sending a clear message of solidarity with the UK trade unions, highly represented, ourselves, the RMT. We send a clear message to government: get P&O to withdraw these plans, get round the table, let's work a sustainable way forward.
But how likely is that, do you think? I mean, the government say they're looking at the contracts they have with the company. Would that be a good negotiating tool to threaten withdrawal?
I think that's the least that they can do. Again, I think the letter from Kwasi Kwarteng is clear in that respect as well. The government is angry, the opposition is angry, the consumers are angry, my members are angry. I'm absolutely flabbergasted. I've 40 odd years in this business, and it can throw some curveballs at you, I can tell you. But this has just stunned everybody. Absolutely ripped us apart. The government has a strategy to grow maritime as an island nation, as a proud maritime nation. It's called the Maritime 2050 strategy. It's a whole chapter on growing and investing in skills, local jobs, communities, investing in coastal communities. And they've been devastated by this move by P&O Ferries. It's absolutely torn the policy to shreds. So I can see why the government's angry. They didn't know about it. We didn't know about it. The workforce didn't know about it. Sacked by video, pre-recorded yesterday morning. Honestly, I'm absolutely.
But it's
stunned.
interesting, despite, as we're seeing, across the political spectrum, Conservatives, Labour MPs, the SNP, the unions, all, as you say, absolutely angry and devastated. P&O in their latest statement don't sound like they're budging. They say changes bring us into line with standard industry practice, and they expect services to be back to normal in the next day or two.
I know. I also read that they want to maintain high P&O ferry standards and the branding. And they've just jumped all over and stamped all over their own branding. I tell you, they sacked 800 professionals who are the reason this company exists. They are the people, the professionals who run these critical services safely. They should be sacking the board. The guy who runs it used to run pubs, and that's probably where his skills should be deployed, and not running shipping companies.
I mean, obviously there've been calls to take the company into public ownership. That's never going to happen, is it?
Well, it caught me by surprise, that suggestion. And if I just heard Andy Burnham say it in your report, an excellent report, by the way. And it's caught me by surprise. But if that's a real possibility, then we would support it. Why not? It's a critical service. 90% of everything coming in and out of this country comes by sea, and these ferry services run by P&O play a huge part in that job of keeping the supply chains open. Thank you.
Mark Dickinson, thanks very much for talking to us today. Thank you.